This is called Up in Smoke because this lovely old factory and everything in it went up in smoke in the 1990s. And one of the things that were in it were a bunch of paintings that you'll see. This shows the thing in context. This is the old Westmoreland Glass plant, and this was once upon a time the old Crawshore home. And this sits on the railroad, the main line between Greensburg and Jeannette. That's looking toward Jeannette. That's the factory floor. All these photos are before it was torched. It was torched by arsonists. This was a studio I had there. I and a bunch of other artists lived there. And when we moved out, the arsonists moved in and destroyed the place. This was on one of my studio walls. This was a painting there with some of my tools. Another one of my studio walls. What you'll notice here is that I was using old glass palettes to do paintings. The palettes that the glass were put on after they come out of the furnace were not as big as the palettes you think of that are moved around by tow motors, but they were big enough to do paintings on. And in this case, I used two of them to do a painting on. And I often found old stencils in the factory, too. The stencils became interesting to help identify the paintings because I was doing non-objective work, which meant naming them non-objective work is often difficult. So the stencils sometimes helped. In this case, this was another stencil from the shipping department. Another stencil from the shipping department, number 7. This had to do with 4 pallets put together, grouped together. Some of them deserve little comment. I call this collision aftermath. I also did a lot of roofing out there, and that round thing was a spool from roofing material that I used to put on. Another one done from glass pallets. This is about the size of a glass pallet. You can get the proportions of it. This was named Gabrielle for one of the people who were out at the factory, an artist. I called this one Ground War. It was done during the first invasion of Iraq under the older George Bush. Some of them deserve little comment. The stencils came in very handy. Also round scums from the top of a paint bucket I would just throw on there. In some cases, the finished work is better than the original painting. I worked with a local photographer, John Nichols, to translate the old 35 millimeter slides I had of the paintings into good digital images, and we printed them up on 13 by 19 digital photo paper. And they're a really nice grouping of paintings. You'll notice this one says Lunar, L-U-N-A-R. It was done on the full moon. And to get a sense of context here, this was the skin from the top of a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket of yellow paint, and I threw that on there and pounded in a bunch of nails to stabilize it. I was always finding signs in the old factory, and I often incorporated them into these things. Another sign, another stencil, and a lot of paint. This one I incorporated some roofing material into something I was making on these old glass pallets. I did a lot of roofing out there. There were a lot of leaky roofs. The guy who had been general manager told me that there were about 250,000 square feet of space out there under roof. There's a lot to take care of. This is the only one you'll see that's in a frame, and you'll see it later on. oriented differently. This, I used the scale from a pyrometer, which was one of the things that kept track of the temperature in one of the kilns out there. More roofing provides the basis of this one, and I shot it so that some grass in the background was showing through. Same thing with this one, with half-inch mesh. More roofing spools. I put a lot of roofing on that place, and there were a lot of those plastic roofing spools left over, and I put them to good use. This is the one you saw with a frame on it, only oriented about 90 degrees differently. Think, the green think, and then you'll see the purple think. Working with these things digitally on a computer, we could alter them drastically, so that in some cases we come out with a result which was better than the original. That was a sign from a woman's restroom, combined on a glass palette with a lot of stencils. And that's where we started out. And I see we're over 6 minutes now and close to the point where we should say so long. And the paintings were made around 1990 in the factory. And after myself and the other artists moved out, in the later 90s, the arsonists destroyed the place, totally ruined it, and everything was in it. And I think it's time to say so long, and we'll see you later.